interception performance. Michael Vick comes back with a terrible first half. Might I mind you, he did have an impressive second quarter, trying to come back against the Ravens that did indeed complete the comeback with a 5-yard scamper to give them the lead with under 2 minutes to go. For Michael Vick and this Eagles squad to get your second win, to go to 2-0 with some relatively ugly football. It has not been the prettiest 2-0 I've seen in a while. But for the Eagles, now you're up in the division and you have a relatively easy stretch. And obviously, it'll be a challenge as the NFC East should come down to the final couple weeks. But a 2-0 start is certainly a way to step forward for the Eagles.
Well, yeah, no matter how you look at it, I was hanging out with some friends earlier at my football practice, and we're all talking about the Eagles, and I'm talking about all the turnovers, 9 turnovers in 2 games. When you say it that way, it sounds bad, but you got to put it this way. They have 9 turnovers and 2 wins, and the 2 wins is the thing you really got to, focus on. It's amazing how different you can feel about 2 different games when they were both 1-point wins. You look at the Browns' 1-point win, and you had no idea what to expect. But then you go to the Ravens, one of the top teams of the AFC, home opener for the Eagles. And this game was dirty on both sides. I mean, there was a lot of fights in this game. You had another game where the officials kind of lost control. Fists were flying, people were shoved over. It definitely got pretty, intense for a while there. But to see Mike Vick come back when the Ravens were up 20-17 late in the game, and they were held to a field goal, 23-17. You can almost hear the crowd do the math and realize a touchdown wins it here, and we believe Michael Vick can get it down there. The fans never lost hope in this game. Michael Vick did exactly what he did in Cleveland, and he drives him down the field, and he scores on a 5-yard touchdown, and then does something that all Philadelphia fans are going to be okay with. You get the score, and then you have your defense win you the game, which is exactly what happened. The Ravens did have one more chance to get the ball, and they were not able to get in field goal range to win this game. So you look, neither of these games were pretty, but if you know how to win those tough games, the easy ones will eventually come. There are plenty of teams out there that can blow out teams. Look at the Patriots, but when you have to stick in a game and they come out and they punch you in the mouth early, can you hang with them, and can you match them blow for blow? The Eagles have shown they know how to win ugly, which could definitely come in handy down the road.
It can come in handy, but when you have a red zone offense that did not have any sort of success until the second half, you mentioned in the red zone an interception by Vick and a fumble by McCoy in this week, and then last week, obviously more problems with 9 total turnovers in 2 weeks. One of the worst marks in the National Football League to this point. And Michael Vick, even though he passed for over 370 yards, and he did have an over 70% completion rate, 2 interceptions, not going to get it done. 4 interceptions last week. I mean, you have to be positive, Phil. You cut the interceptions in half. That's certainly a plus going into week 3. But for Philadelphia, a 2-0, an ugly 2-0. And for Baltimore, it's one of those scenarios. I mean, I saw this game. Brent Selleck had some wide open balls, and it's one of those things now for Baltimore. Your defense is not as good as you thought it was. With Ray Lewis getting old, with Ed Reed, he wasn't even. For a while now, he wasn't even thinking of a comeback. He was thinking of retiring. He did indeed come back for this year, and the whole defensive unit for the Ravens, up and down the entire first half, and obviously very physical, but that physicality didn't result in a win. And the defense, late in the game, Michael Vick was able to get the best of on a long drive and a touchdown, and obviously some shaky calls towards the end. Michael Vick possibly should have been called for intentional grounding, but win is a win, Phil, and 2-0 for the Eagles certainly looks a lot better than 0-2, which they did have a potential shot at doing after barely nipping the Browns and the Ravens.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you brought up Brent Selleck's amazing performance, because I almost forgot to, and that would have been a tragedy. This guy took over the football game with 8 catches and 157 yards. I took my Brent Selleck jersey out of the closet, and I wore that to my classes today. And I had at least 3 people come up to me, and they're like, was that the guy that jumped over Ed Reed? That's something, no one expected to see. He's one of the better tight ends in the game, and he's very underrated because he doesn't have games like that all the time, but he always has the potential to do so. Brent Selleck definitely leading the charge, along with Deshaun Jackson, who had 117 yards receiving. Jeremy Maclin battling injuries. He had a few plays. He did have a touchdown catch from blown coverage from Baltimore. It'll be interesting to see if he plays next week because he seemed to have re-aggravated his injury when they play Arizona. It'll be interesting to see. But, you look at that game, you get the ball to the playmakers. Vic has there's 3 turnovers in the red zone. If you take any of those away and even just convert them to field goals, this game is almost not even close. So really it just comes down to cutting down the turnovers, and there's no limit to where this Eagles team can fly to. No pun intended.
Philadelphia certainly has had its fair share of mistakes, and even though they did have a better time of possession than the Ravens, reading over the stat sheet again, in this game, 7 penalties, not going to get it done, under 50% on third down, and obviously 9 turnovers, as you mentioned, is not going to get it done any week, let alone against a team like the Ravens. But obviously surprising that the Baltimore Ravens were able to not get over this turnover fest in this game, and also include the fact that this was a very physical game, some calls going both ways, very questionable penalties on both sides, but Philadelphia able to get it done. And looking at 2-0, I mean, it's just it's obviously a marvel just that the Eagles were able to get it done. And another marvel across the National Football League, Andrew Luck certainly performed in his debut, home debut against the Minnesota Vikings, 23-20. Able to get a final drive going for the Colts and pull out the W. For Andrew Luck, certainly a performance to remember, to get his first win ever as a Colt. Will Andrew Luck be a good quarterback this year? It already shows signs of maturity, and obviously that comeback drive to win it certainly gives him confidence after putting a win under his belt.
Well, after 2 weeks now, you have RG3 and you have Andrew Luck with even records at 1-1. It seems both guys, since you're always going to compare these two, they both had times to shine. And he did look pretty good in this game. He was able to come back late, and win this game, which is definitely a good sign. You don't want to go 0-2. Pretty much, you can understand that the Colts are not the team that they used to be. They're definitely the bottom tier of the NFL, and all they're really asking Andrew Luck to do, with this year, no one's expecting a playoff berth from the Colts. If it happens, it'll be a huge surprise, things of that nature. What they're really asking him to do, and they're saying in not so many words, is like, just beat the teams that we are capable of beating. And Minnesota is one of those teams they were capable of beating, and Andrew Luck went out there and got the job done. They want to show the fan base, they want to show the front office that Andrew Luck means progress, and it means improvement, and I think he showed that this week.
And the receiving core and running back tandem for the Colts, obviously something to improve on. The Minnesota Vikings for a while were not even in this game, and they were indeed able to tie the game before Indianapolis on a game-winning drive. I mean, your receiving core for the Indianapolis Colts obviously needs work. The top receiver in this game, Donnie Avery, with the ex-Ram with 9 catches. Kobe Fleener, another impressive performance, but Reggie Wayne is the guy to build your football team around, along with Andrew Luck. That just passing combination looks very, very impressive. I mean, they only got for 1 touchdown today, but obviously the Minnesota Vikings coming into this game, it was a relatively even match. Both teams weren't necessarily favored, and Christian Ponder played very well, perhaps statistically even better than Andrew Luck. But Luck gets the win and the comeback drive, and obviously with Donald Brown not being the running with under 3 yards a carry, it's interesting how the Colts are still able to win, putting so much on the shoulders of Andrew Luck. He did only pass 31 times, but on that game-winning drive, certainly did not look like a rookie.
Yeah, you look at this team, Minnesota coming off a close win against Jacksonville, the week beforehand. Minnesota had a little bit more momentum going into this game. When it comes down to it, Minnesota does not have the best defense. So, Andrew Luck was able to take advantage of that. Even though, as you said earlier, his running backs and his wide receivers aren't up to par, as even, say, Washington with RG3. If you compare those weapons, I think I said it last week, you definitely have to give the edge to Washington. So pretty much what Andrew Luck is doing is he's just taking what he has and he's going with it. And the Colts, I think, are very pleased with his progress so far.
Yeah, and from another the quarterback over there in Indianapolis, it's always going to be, we mentioned last week, RG3 and Andrew Luck are going to be linked their entire career. And Andrew Luck, certainly with an impressive performance. Robert Griffin also putting up over 300 yards passing for the second week in a row. Robert Griffin certainly putting up a performance, rookie year to remember. and for Washington to come up short against the St. Louis Rams, both the Colts and the Redskins facing two below-average teams. And I didn't expect Washington to come up short in this game, but St. Louis did provide with Danny Amendola, the receiving threat over there for St. Louis, did provide a spark offensively, and then a game-winning drive. I'm not sure if very many people caught this, but Josh Morgan with a bonehead call with under a minute to go, throwing the football at Cortland Finnegan on a game-winning drive attempt, and obviously Billy Cundiff was obviously asked for a lot to do. A 62-yard field goal, which could have been cut down almost in half if Josh Morgan does not make perhaps the bonehead play of the day.
Yeah, that was a game, it's probably the best game that nobody saw this week, unless you're an RG3 fan. You didn't think to watch him play the Rams when, I was actually at work when this game was going on, but I expected it to be good. You have two former Heisman Trophy winners, with Sam Bradford and RG3 going at it, and it was a game, it's almost one of those you call it a tackling optional type of game because the defense obviously did not show up. You can tell by the high scoring of these games. And I think it was good for Sam Bradford. I know most of the talk is on, Andrew Luck and RG3. But for Sam Bradford, at one point he had all the same hype that these guys are having coming out of the draft with the Heisman Trophy and the number one pick and all that, So I think it was good for him because he's definitely at the crossroads of his career. If the Rams decide, because it seems regardless the Rams are going to be low in the draft picks this year anyway. So it'll be interesting to see, even St. Louis was talking about this past year picking a quarterback that they were already ready to give up on Sam Bradford. So, for the sake of him, it's good to see him get a win against the team, maybe in underdog fashion, because Sam Bradford definitely has to step his game up to, improve with the Rams and prove that he is the guy for the future on that franchise. So overall, it was a great game, and it was, I feel it was nice to see Sam Bradford and the St. Louis Rams come out on top.
For Sam Bradford, it's only his third year, so a lot is put on Sam Bradford. And for NFL quarterbacks, typically you don't see their premier football until they reach the age of 30. Obviously, Sam Bradford only 24, and he has cut down the touchdown to interception ratio over the past few years. And the St. Louis Rams had a chance to reaching the playoffs in his rookie year, unable to get it done. And then this comeback year, reading off the stats here, under 55% completion percentage, but cut down the interceptions in his 10 games started and over 2,000 yards offense. So for this year, he has had a comeback year so far with 4 TDs to 1 interception. Sam Bradford, as long as he can cut down those touchdowns to interceptions and have one of those late-game rallies that they did have against the Redskins, they can beat some good teams this year. Last year, they beat the Saints in their home building. So for St. Louis, it's an upstart squad that maybe could put 5 or 6 wins together if they indeed corral as a football unit. And they did get a big win today against the Washington Redskins. And it's a team to build around Sam Bradford. As long as he performs, he will be the quarterback of the future for this football team. And for St. Louis, as long as they can get the pieces around Bradford, this team could be a squad to reckon with in a few years.
Yeah, you look at St. Louis, and it seems they have almost the same, hurdles to jump over, if you will, as Indianapolis. You look at their weapons. Yes, they have Danny Amendola and they have Steven Jackson. But overall, they need to upgrade with their weapons if they want Sam Bradford to prosper. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in the next few years to upgrade their weaponry. So you look at someone like Andrew Luck, who was able to take what he has. He does have Reggie Wayne, which is definitely always going to be a positive until he, leaves the field for good when he decides to retire. But you got to look at both these guys, and they're never going to be linked for the reasons that like RG3 and Andrew Luck are. But you look at them, they are in very similar situations. They have to take what they have and work with them. And to this point, it's only been 2 games, but you could say that Andrew Luck is maybe doing a better job of that.
And Andrew Luck certainly will be tied with RG3, we already mentioned earlier. But for Robert Griffin and Andrew Luck, so far it's been a rookie season where they haven't had too many bad plays. The Andrew Luck led Colts. So far, Luck has thrown 4 interceptions, but outside of the Bears game, he has certainly provided some sort of a spark for this football team. They're 500, but certainly no race for the playoffs. Now we move on to another topic that is trending over in Atlanta. So far, the Falcons lead that game 20-7, as Phil mentioned, and they are just back into the third quarter.